So, usually when we talk about getting dressed in the morning, there is this expectation of, well, simple utility.
Right, yeah. Just keeping it functional.
Exactly. It's treated like a basic math equation.
Right.
It's cold outside, so you put on a heavy coat. Or you have a formal meeting, so you put on a suit.
Yeah, we really like to think of it as binary. It's either functional or it's not functional.
And honestly, it is incredibly comforting to think of it that way because we want our daily routines to be straightforward. I mean, we really don't want to overthink putting on a shirt.
It's a very safe, utilitarian way of looking at the world. You're just, covering yourself up to face the elements or to adhere to some office dress code. But that perspective completely ignores the actual mechanics of what is happening.
Right, because the moment you step into the world of high-stakes fashion or even global sports psychology, that simple math equation just completely falls apart.
Oh, totally. It shatters.
We are looking at a landscape where the fabric on your back is speaking volumes before you even open your mouth. It's acting as a psychological weapon, almost. And that is really our mission for this deep dive today, exploring this strange, fascinating intersection where high fashion meets brand democratization and sports psychology.
It's such a rich area to dig into.
It really is. We have a stack of notes today titled Modern Threads and World Cup Ambitions, and it reveals how clothing has evolved into this highly calculated tool. So let's unpack this. Because if you look at the modern fashion landscape, it really operates like a secret language. And today, we're basically handing you the decoder ring.
I love that analogy because intention is being woven directly into the thread. And what is so compelling is how different arenas from a, high-end runway in Paris to a concrete stadium tunnel utilize that intention in entirely different ways to manipulate both the wearer and the audience.
Let's start with the runway side of that equation. Specifically, the upcoming SS27 menswear release that just debuted this past week.
Right, the Spring-Summer 2027 collection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For anyone outside the industry, SS27 means we're looking years into the future of fashion here. And the biggest takeaway from our sources on this collection is a major fundamental shift in design philosophy. We are talking about garments engineered with immense precision and detail, but, and this is the key, it goes way beyond just adding visual flair.
Right.
The designers are embedding hidden messages directly into the pieces.
And what's fascinating here is that evolution from the overt to the covert, because historically, if you look at high fashion menswear, it often relied on incredibly loud accents just to justify its existence,
Like huge logos and stuff.
Exactly. Bold cuts, massive metallic hardware, oversized logos, something that literally screams from across the room to let everyone know exactly how much you spent.
Yeah.
But this SS27 release is aggressively pulling back from that.
Yeah.
It is utilizing extreme precision to hide its complexity. The craftsmanship isn't meant to be consumed by everyone walking past you on the street. It is meant to be discovered only by those who, well, know what to look for.
And nothing captures that covert philosophy better than what the source material calls the 14th artifact, which, by the way, is just an incredibly evocative name for a piece of clothing.
It really is. It sounds highly engineered.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But functionally, it is a satin bomber jacket. And the notes specifically highlight that this jacket is not only comfortable, but it is remarkably versatile.
It's a brilliant case study in elevating a historically utilitarian piece of clothing. Because if you think about the bomber jacket, it has purely military roots.
Right.
It was designed with thick cuffs and a snug waist specifically to keep pilots warm in unheated cockpits. And now the fashion industry is taking that exact blueprint of survival gear and transforming it into a luxury artifact. And the styling details mentioned in our source are the key to understanding how this new hidden language actually operates.
Oh, the styling cues are incredibly specific. The source points out a very particular way this 14th artifact is being worn on the runway and in lookbooks. They are actively adding an undershirt, but styling it specifically so that it pops out beneath the belt of the bomber.
Yeah, that deliberate, untucked look.
Exactly. Plus, there is this signature white flower embroidery that is, and I'm quoting the notes here, making its mark in every event.
So let's look at the mechanics behind those details, right? Having the undershirt intentionally pop out beneath the belt is a deliberate breaking of traditional proportions. It creates a physical and visual tension.
How so?
Well, on one hand, you have the highly structured, luxurious, tailored satin of the bomber jacket, and on the other hand, you have the casual, slightly undone nature of a visible, untucked undershirt. It creates this manufactured nonchalance.
Ah, I see.
It projects the idea of, I am wearing an incredibly precise, expensive garment, but I am so inherently relaxed that I can't even be bothered to tuck my shirt in.
It is the fine art of looking like you didn't try at all, which paradoxically takes an immense amount of effort and planning to execute correctly.
Exactly. It's exhausting to look that effortless.
It really is. And then there's that white flower embroidery making its mark everywhere. It acts as a recurring motif, a sort of subtle signature tying the events and the collection together. But before you get too attached to the idea of casually throwing on this 14th artifact with an untucked shirt, we do need to talk about the barrier to entry.
Yeah, the price tag.
Right. This satin bomber jacket is set to release for about 958 USD, or around 852 euros.
And that price point is exactly where the concept of hidden messages stops being just a design choice and becomes a highly calculated business strategy.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though, and I have to push back a little on this whole concept.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because if the messages are truly hidden, and the styling is explicitly meant to look casually undone, and the jacket costs nearly $1,000, what are we actually paying for here?
That's the big question.
Right. I mean, are we paying almost $1,000 for the slim chance that someone else somehow notices these tiny details? Or are we just paying for our own secret satisfaction? Because $1,000 for a secret feels a bit steep.
It does feel steep, it totally does. But it strikes right at the heart of how modern luxury economics function. You are paying for the exclusivity of knowing.
Yeah, unpack that a bit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of wealth signifiers, we are seeing a massive shift away from logomania in this specific upper tier of fashion. When everyone can save up and buy a standard t-shirt with a giant designer logo plastered across the chest, true luxury retreats into subtlety.
So it hides.
Exactly. You aren't paying $958 for the person on the subway to know you're wealthy. You are paying that so the one other person in the room who also understands the microscopic precision of that specific white flower embroidery recognizes you. It is a private club, and those hidden messages are the password.
Oh, wow. So the satin bomber is literally the membership card. You're buying the secret nod of approval from the three other people at the party who know exactly what the 14th artifact is, while everyone else just thinks you're wearing a normal jacket.
Precisely. The value is intrinsically tied to its obscurity to the masses. Its meaning is crystal clear only to the initiated.
But that extreme exclusivity creates a massive structural ceiling for a business, doesn't it? If your entire brand identity is based on a secret language that costs $1,000 to speak, how do you actually scale a global business?
You hit a wall pretty fast.
Exactly. You have to find a way to democratize that prestige without completely destroying the aura of the brand. Which brings us to Off-White, a brand that our notes explicitly describe as one of the foundational 2000s brands.
And being labeled a foundational brand for an entire decade is a really heavy crown to wear. It means you have incredible cultural cachet. You help define the aesthetic of an era, but nostalgia alone does not pay the rent long term. You have to figure out how to translate that foundational legacy into current monetizable accessibility.
And looking at this strategy from Off-White, it makes total sense why they're pivoting. To secure that legacy, they have just launched a brand new sublabel designed specifically to capture a broader audience. It's called Off-White LEB Co.
Right, the new sublabel.
And the design language they are using for this sublabel is fascinating, especially compared to what we just talked about. The notes highlight the inaugural use of quotation marks and what they call obsessive branding designs.
Contrast that immediately with the SS-27 release we just unpacked.
It's night and day.
It really is. The SS-27 bomber was entirely about hidden messages, subtlety, and manufactured nonchalance. This new Off-White sublabel is about the exact opposite. Quotation marks and obsessive branding mean you are wearing the brand's identity as loudly and visibly as possible. It is overt. It is designed to be seen from across the street.
And the data point we have here explains exactly why it is so overt. Every single item in this new Off-White sublabel is issued at a price of less than $200.
Yeah, and this sub-$200 price point is a highly calculated mechanism. They are offering the cultural weight of a foundational 2000s brand to the masses.
Right.
When the price drops to an accessible level, the psychological strategy of the wearer shifts completely. You no longer rely on hidden details for value because you aren't trying to signal to a private club of insiders. You rely on obsessive branding to ensure everyone in the room knows exactly what you were wearing.
The wearer wants the world to know they're participating in the Off-White legacy.
Exactly. And in exchange, the brand gets a free walking billboard.
It's kind of like a famous, highly exclusive Michelin star chef opening up a really good, accessible burger joint right next door to their flagship restaurant.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. You get a taste of the genius without having to book a table 6 months in advance or spend $1,000. But my question is, does plastering this obsessive branding on a sub-$200 t-shirt risk diluting the legacy of that foundational 2000s name? If the burger joint next door becomes too popular, does the Michelin star lose its shine?
Well, this raises a really important question about the life cycle and economics of luxury brands. Yes, there is absolutely a risk of brand dilution. If the mass market items flood the market and lose their cultural edge, people will start to question the integrity of the flagship brand.
Which is the nightmare scenario for them.
Exactly. However, if managed correctly, it is a symbiotic relationship. The sublabel acts as an entry point. It captures a younger, broader demographic who might not be able to afford the $1,000 jackets yet, but who desperately want to buy into the cultural narrative.
So they start small.
Right. And the revenue generated by the loud, obsessive branding at the $200 level is essentially what funds the quiet, hidden message artistry at the top level.
Oh, I see. So they feed into each other. The sub-$200 buyer feels empowered because they're part of the cultural zeitgeist. And the $958 buyer gets to maintain their exclusive, subtle club because the brand is financially secure enough to keep making obscure satin bombers.
It is a fascinating balancing act of personal branding and public perception.
And that balancing act of using clothing to manipulate perception isn't just restricted to fashion consumers walking down the street or, posting on social media. The psychology of what we wear and who we are trying to convince reaches its absolute peak when the stakes are at their highest.
Without a doubt.
Which naturally brings us to the final and arguably most intense part of our deep dive today. We're taking this idea of accessible, status-driven fashion and moving it straight to the ultimate global proving ground, the FIFA World Cup.
There is literally no larger stage on Earth. The sheer volume of global eyeballs on this tournament creates a pressure cooker environment that is incredibly difficult to comprehend if you aren't standing in it.
The notes we have highlight that this year's World Cup is a massive stepping stone. It's not just another tournament in the cycle. It is a crucial defining moment for new players, for new managers, and particularly for first-time teams who finally have a chance to prove themselves on the world stage.
The psychological burden of that moment is immense. You aren't just representing yourself anymore.
Oh, no, not at all.
You are representing the hopes of your entire nation, perhaps for the very first time on a stage this large. The weight of expectations can be paralyzing. And this is where the intersection of clothing and high-stakes psychology becomes absolutely vital to performance.
The source material gives us this incredible detail that completely reframes how I watch these games now. It focuses on the moments before the players ever step into their official uniforms. They arrive at the stadium in personal garments specifically chosen, and I'm quoting the notes here, to build up their energy.
Yeah.
The text literally asks the reader, which outfit is certain to revive the need to win?
This taps into a profound psychological mechanism. In behavioral psychology, there is a concept called enclothed cognition.
Enclothed cognition.
Yes. It isn't just a metaphor. It's essentially a biofeedback loop. The physical clothes you wear actually alter your psychological processes and your biological state.
Wait, really? Like an actual biological shift?
Yes, absolutely. When you wear a garment that you internally associate with power, precision, or legacy, your brain adopts those traits. Your posture physically straightens. That change in posture alters your hormone levels, actually reducing your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and making you feel less anxious in that stadium tunnel.
Wow, so the famous tunnel fit, it's not just a photo op for Instagram, it's a biological hack.
Before they have to put on the team uniform, which by design completely strips them of their individuality and makes them one interchangeable part of a collective machine, they have this brief, crucial window to wear their own personal garments.
To hold on to who they are.
Exactly. These outfits are psychological tools. When these newcomers step off the bus, walking through the tunnel with hundreds of cameras flashing, they are using these specific clothes to project confidence, to steady their physical nerves, and to internally validate their own ambition.
So what does this all mean? It's kind of like putting on noise-canceling headphones in a chaotic, deafening room. The arrival garment filters out the imposter syndrome.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, like before they have to wear the uniform and become a cog in the team machine, that personal jacket allows them to hold on to their individual identity for just one more hour. It's like a knight putting on their own personal armor. The clothes they wear before the uniform are how they convince themselves they belong in that stadium.
The uniform is for the team, but the arrival garment is strictly for the individual's mind. When the source notes ask which outfit will revive the need to win, it is acknowledging a very human truth. Ambition can falter under extreme pressure. A first-time player stepping off that bus might feel absolutely terrified. But if they are wearing a garment that makes them feel untouchable, maybe it's a meticulously crafted $1,000 bomber with a hidden white flower. Or maybe it's a loudly branded foundational off-white piece. That garment acts as a mental anchor. It physically revives their competitive drive.
It is wild to think that the outcome of a match on the world's biggest stage could be subtly influenced by how empowered a single player felt in their own clothes an hour before kickoff. It really recontextualizes everything we've looked at today in this stack of notes. Clothing is never just fabric.
Never. It is an incredibly powerful communicator both to the outside world and, more importantly, to our own internal state of mind. We are constantly using it to hack our own psychology.
Which brings us back to you, listening to this right now. We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started by decoding the hidden, highly exclusive messages woven into a 958 SS-27 satin bomber, the quiet luxury of an insider's club where tension and nonchalance are perfectly manufactured.
Yeah, that covert signaling.
Exactly. Then we looked at the scaling problem of luxury and how foundational legacy brands democratize their aesthetic, using obsessive branding and sub-$200 price points to capture a broader audience and, essentially, fund their own survival.
And finally, we saw how those two seemingly distinct worlds of fashion collide in the high-stakes environment of the World Cup, where first-time players use their pre-game garments not just to look good for the cameras, but to trigger enclothed cognition.
Psychologically armoring themselves to build the energy required to win.
Exactly.
It really all comes down to intention. The designers have a precise intention, the brands have a scaling strategy, and the wearer has a psychological purpose.
And that applies directly to your everyday life. Whether you are prepping for a major corporate presentation, heading out to a difficult meeting, or just walking down your local street, your own garments are building up your energy. You are utilizing enclothed cognition just as much as those elite athletes and fashion icons.
You are stepping into your own stadium tunnel every single morning.